This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. You want to write a book, right? Otherwise, why would you be here? You're trying to find a topic. I feel ya. But you know what? Everybody's got a story, but some just happen to be more compelling than others. Al Romero is the first to admit he was really lucky to come from a family with a rich history. And when I say rich, his family happened to help bring Fidel Castro to power in Cuba and then suffered the consequences, never thinking Castro intended to run a dictatorship. His book is entitled Revolution. He calls it a historical political thriller. So lay it out for us, Al.
My family was involved with Fidel. Then when they realized that he was a communist, because he never told anybody he was a communist, while they were helping him get rid of Batista, they started working against him. I had an uncle that was an officer in Fidel's armed forces who started working for the CIA while he still was in the armed forces, got caught and got killed in the firing squad.
Jesus.
You know how The Godfather is the story of the mafia told through a family?
Yeah.
Well, I took the same formula. My book is the story of the Cuban Revolution told through a family.
Okay.
How the whole revolution got started, how Fidel landed in Cuba from Mexico, the people that were with him from the very beginning, how they fought, against him. We show the family, the people that were not fighting, but were still in Havana, supporting the members that were fighting. Then when Fidel took over, the book is in two parts. Part one is them defeating Batista. Part two is Fidel taking over and slowly turning against everybody that helped him defeat Batista. How he started then showing that he was actually a communist, and how he started killing thousands of people in firing squads, a lot of the people that fought for him and with him. Fidel have sold the narrative that it was like a peasant revolt that he led. The Cuban Revolution actually was the middle class and some of the upper middle class that was tired of Cuba being a banana republic and wanted to make it into a true democratic country. Those are the people that supported him, financed him, and helped him. And he knew that if he would have said to those people that he was a communist, none of those people would have, helped him. He didn't want to only be a dictator. He wanted to control the whole country. Listen, dictators come and go. Dictators are there just to rape the country and make money, and they stay there for a little while, and then they either leave or they're pushed out. Fidel wanted to become an international figure, which he did, and the beachhead of that international platform is Cuba, 90 miles away from the United States. And here's this little country, and Fidel goes again and gives the finger to the United States. He became an international hero to all those people that don't like the United States. He knew what he was doing. He just didn't tell the people that helped him get there what he was doing. In the book, it shows how the people fought with him, and then part two is when they take over, when he takes over, and then you see all the machinations and all the back channeling that he put out, a government to be a fictitious government, and he was working behind the scene to even, subvert the same government that he put up, because that was just nothing but a window dressing. And I show chapter by chapter how he starts, consolidating here, getting rid of people over there, suppressing the press, suppressing free speech, and slowly taking over to the point that it became a complete, total suffocating dictatorship. And I end the book right before the Bay of Pigs, because after the Bay of Pigs, when he was totally consolidated his power, is when the first time that Fidel says, I am a communist. I have always been a Marxist-Leninist, which he never told anybody until that time.
And you're definitely getting some attention because you just got off the phone with another interview.
Yes, I am. I'm getting interviews left and right. I'm trying to, anyways. I'm contacting people. I've been in show business for over 30 years, so I have a lot of people that know other people, and they putting me in touch with radio personalities and so forth and so on. I'm also doing the Miami International Book Fair, and I'm also doing some book signings, bookstores around the South Florida area.
All right, Al, way to go. Obviously, you had the determination to bring the story to life, which is just as important as the story itself. There's no shortage of people who use writing as a way to work through tragedy or difficult times. And this was the case for John Richmond, who was devastated by his son's autism diagnosis and has since found strength by sharing his story. It's entitled Totally Lost. John.
Yes, so my son, right around the time he turned about his 5th birthday, he was diagnosed as high functioning on the autism spectrum. And for a couple of months after that, we were trying to find our way a little bit. It kind of kicked me in the gut. And this book was my coping mechanism. I didn't really know how to deal with it, so I just sat down and started writing what would be the equivalent of 2 or 3 chapters and let a couple people read it. And they said, this is really good. I finally finished it about November of the following year and submitted it to Page for publication. I wrote the book intending to reach the audience that I was at the time, which was just found this out, don't know anything about autism, don't really know what I'm dealing with, and I need to hear somebody's voice. I need to hear somebody's story that's been through the same thing that I've been through and come out better on the other side. It's because I went looking for some literature, and what I found was a lot of clinical PhDs written, which was all very useful information, but in that moment, I wanted to read something by somebody that had been through it and come out better on the other side. We knew that there were things going on. His speech was very delayed. He's 7 now. He really doesn't talk that much. He can say anything that you ask him to. If you ask him to say a word, it comes out clear as a bell. But there's no reciprocal communication with him. He wasn't autistic until somebody told us he was. In that moment, there's a kind of a come to Jesus realization that, hey, I am the father of a special needs child. And that part is what kind of put me in a dark place for a little while of, yesterday I was a parent. Today I'm the parent of a special needs child. And I actually had a good friend of mine give me some advice, that they said, when you identify something, that's the first step to unlocking its secrets. And that's very true. But it's also the point in which you have to come to terms with, yes, this is my new reality. And that's kind of what hit me. It still hits me to this day. Because I will tell you one thing about me. I grew up in a small town in West Texas. What was really hard for me was life and success have come relatively easily to me. And it's not going to be that easy for my son. The things that I'm really good at, communicating, keeping relationships. So I'm in uncharted waters. I can't relate to a lot of what he's going through because it's the things that I'm really good at. And so that's what was probably the hardest thing for me, was the things that I'm best at are the things that he's going to struggle with, and I can't relate.
So where are you at now? Does this book bring you full circle?
The short answer to that question is no. There's no pill that'll take care of this. This is going to be a lifelong condition that we will have to deal with. The problem with my son is we have no idea what adulthood will look like for him. We are at least a decade away from having any kind of legitimate, educated answer to that. As far as the book, it definitely helped me cope. It also helped me in that I know that there's a lot of other people that can really benefit from reading our story. It helped me to get some of my thoughts down on paper and to, kind of just pour my heart out. And because I talk a lot in the book about, some of the mistakes that we made. That was a big part of it for me, is owning some of those mistakes and getting my story out there, because I'm not the only one like that. I'm not the only one that's been through this. This isn't going away. So this will be a lifelong condition we'll have to deal with. But the book was a real good start for me to try to get our story out and to help somebody else. The only way I knew to make it for my own mistakes was to help somebody else not make those same mistakes.
I would think you've found a lot of interest in this book.
Yeah, so I've had several book signings with through Barnes and Nobles across North Texas and Oklahoma. I've never done anything like this before. It's been a pretty humbling experience for me, for people to email me that I may have met them in person before, but I don't remember their name. They'll email me, and it's like talking to my sister. It's like talking to family. So yeah, I've had some really good feedback on the book, and it's an exciting thing for me. Personally, it's exciting for my family. I love having my kids immortalized in there on paper. I think that's a neat thing to have happen, and I'm very, very proud of it.
Good for you, John. Thank you. Odessa Moore recently lost her daughter to lung cancer, and it got her thinking about her life, what kind of mother she was, what kind of mother her mother was. And when she wrote it all down, she had a fascinating account of so many lives without love or direction, and women determined to somehow survive. The name of her book is How Stolen Pride Destroyed My Innocence. Odessa.
Put it like this. My grandmother, she was born on the tail end of slavery. And she wasn't really taught anything. My grandmother couldn't read or write or anything. And she couldn't train my mother. She couldn't train her kids like she should have. And the only thing she knew was what her mother had taught her. And most of that was things that she had learned from the slave master. So when my mother was 24 years old, still a virgin, my grandmother and a lot of her friends around the area was telling her, you're 24, you're going to be an old maid, you never had a man, your nature going to go to your head and run you crazy and you're going to die. And she said the thing that really pushed it over the edge, her best friend lost her mind and she died. And she thought that was what it was from. And she went out and got pregnant with me. And as the sad part of it all is, she didn't know how to take care of her child. And she left the farm. My grandmother wanted her to stay on the farm and sharecrop the farm, and she told her H no. And she left and moved to South Carolina looking for her aunt. She couldn't find her, and she found a friend of hers. And she told me out of her own mouth she had to teach my mother how to take care of her baby, how to take care of herself, because she didn't know anything. And with that, my mother had other children out of wedlock, and back in the 30s and 40s, women having kids out of wedlock and not being married was scorned. They was looked down on. And she had all these kids. She had 5 kids. Couldn't take care of them. She told me one time she was washing dishes in a restaurant, and she used to wear a big girdle. And just like people would order chicken, they get the whole half of chicken. If they left a piece, didn't eat it, she wrapped it up in a napkin and stick it down in her girdle, and that's what we had to eat. So she decided what she would do. She couldn't take care of us. She was going to take her kids and all down on the railroad track and let the train kill her kids and all. So a friend of hers saw her and told her, don't do that. If you can't take care of them, give them to somebody. And that's what she did,
She gave all of her kids away.
She gave all of them away except for the one. My one brother, he was slow. And nobody wanted him. He was sickly, too, because he had to drink goat's milk and he had problems, and nobody wanted him because he couldn't do anything, So that was the only one that she had to keep. She kept him and raised him. And the sad part of it all is he was going to school, and they told my mother he was never going to learn anything, so there was no need for him to come back to school. But let me tell you, this young man, he taught himself how to read, how to cook, how to sew. He could do anything in a house that a woman could do. He could iron, all of that.
Wow.
He could tell you what was going to come on TV, who was going to be in it, all of that. They said he couldn't learn anything. And I thought that was so sad, It's just too bad they didn't have some way of keeping him in school and trying to train him. I think he really would have learned.
Right. But that's what this book is about?
Yes, it's about me, about my life, the life that I lived. Even after an adult, I went through quite a bit because my mother, the people that my mother gave me to, I say everything they did for me, I earned because I worked from the age of 5 to the age of 13 when I ran away. And they never taught me anything. I call them foster parents. Back then, there was no such thing as foster parents because they didn't have anything like that. But people took other people's children in and raised them. And they took me in. And my foster mother has never, the whole 8.5 years that I was there, she never held a conversation with me about anything. She never taught me anything.
So you were like a slave?
Yes. They were sharecropping. And I tell you, from the age of 7 until the age of 10, cotton picking time, I had to go out in the field, and I hated it. And I never picked no more than 30 to 35 pounds of cotton. I went home every night, and I got a whipping. I've been whipped with razor straps, ironing cords, extension cords. Back then, the irons were made where you had to stick the ironing cord in the back of the iron. You could take it out, put it in. The message is, even if you're taking somebody's child in, show that child some love, nurture that child, try to train that child. I always thought that I wonder what would have happened if they had just put their arms around me and told me, everything's going to be all right. we love you, talk to me and tried to show me some things, I don't believe I would have ran away. I fact, I really believe I probably would have stayed there. But they said things happen for a reason, and maybe that was the reason was I didn't need to be in that situation.
You certainly didn't, Odessa, and thank you for sharing your story. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Tanika Drake was in the Air Force and then found herself the victim of domestic violence and raising her 4 kids, all under the age of 10, by herself. But she found strength writing her first book entitled The Gift of Finding God's Love. Tell us about your inspiration.
Well, as the transition that I had coming from Phoenix to California, and because of the domestic violence that had me come, I was searching for something to do because I couldn't get a job when I first came out here, and I was trying to get my kids in school. So I had found a business coach, and she was talking about using your voice to share, and I was like, well, I don't have anything. I don't have any expertise. And she's like, well, do you have anything that you used to do? And I say, well, yeah, I used to be a public speaker. She's like, well, why aren't we doing that? I was like, because I don't have a platform right now. She's like, well, maybe you should write a book about a story, your story. I was like, about domestic violence? She's like, yes, it could help people. And I was like, well, she's like, what you should do right now, just write a page. Just write one page and then just tell me how you did. And so I wrote her back and I said, I wrote a page. She's like, there's the start to your book. Now it's up to you to continue to get it done. So I would do it every day. And she wasn't coaching me anymore. So I would do it a little bit here and there. And that's how it came to be. And then I found Page Publishing to get the manuscript done because I was trying to do it myself and publish it by myself, but I kind of messed it up. So I said, I need some help.
Right. So what's your deal? You were married. The father of your 4 children abused you?
Yes, and I'm still currently married because it's still a situation that is still unfolding, even though as this book is being put out. So I'm still trying to get out of the legal divorcing him. So I just know I needed to separate from him, and I've been separated from him for 2 years now. Wow.
Does he realize what the problem is?
Oh, of course not. It's not him. It's me. That would be the problem.
But you have 4 kids with him. That's their dad. That's got to be very difficult.
It is for the children because they want to be around him. They want to enjoy what we had as a family unit, but it cannot be because he just got from bad to worse to I felt danger for myself and not being around for my kids. And I said, I really can't handle anymore. I've taken as much as I can take, and I really can't take anymore.
What does he do? Does he just get angry or drunk, or what's his deal?
He has a very extreme anger problem that goes beyond. So if I were to say something that he didn't agree with, and depending on the day, because sometimes he has a good attitude, sometimes he doesn't. But if I come into him at a wrong time and he's just very confrontational, so if there's something that he doesn't like and I've said something and I disagree with it, well, then he and I will not just have words, it will be physical altercation. And I would try to talk to him, and of course he would want to hear, because I would always want to go read my word or go listen to gospel. And he said, you think you're better than everyone? You think you're a holy roller? What are you? You think you're perfect, but you're not. I was like, I never said I'm perfect. I know I'm flawed. And we would go through this round and round thing all the time. And I kept checking and seeing, am I going through domestic violence or not? I would Google it. I would search. I was like, it kind of seems like it is, but it can't be because I married him. I should know these signs if I were, and I didn't know.
Wow, that is so scary. And they try to convince you it's all your fault. So your book is your journey in getting away from this guy and trying to keep it together for your 4 kids.
Exactly. That is exactly what it's about, and to empower others to let them know you can get out, because that's one of those things where domestic violence keeps you so trapped. You're physically, you can go wherever you want to go, but mentally you're still stuck. Until you break the prison of your mind, you'll never, ever leave. And anybody could tell me all day, because I was working for the state, and people say, you need to leave. You need to pack your stuff, you and your kids, and leave. But I didn't think I could leave. There was just some hold and manipulation that he had done over the years that I said, I can't leave this man. If I leave, something really bad is going to happen to me or my kids. And just being stuck in that vicious cycle that goes round and round. You want to leave, but you can't. You don't know what to do, until finally I really got to hear from the Lord say, this is what you're going to do. And you have to leave now. You have to do that.
Good for you, Tanika. Good for you. I hope you can share your story with other victims. Thank you. Drusilla Robinson has been single her entire life and found she wanted to share that experience. So after she retired as a mechanical engineer, she wrote her first book entitled Maximize Singleness. Drusilla.
I'll be happy to tell you about the 9 rules to maximizing your singleness.
Okay.
Rule number 1 is to establish an intimate relationship with God, because without Him, your life is like a ship without a sail. Rule number 2 is to recognize God's voice, because you need that for direction in life. Rule number 3 is to become whole. You need to get healed and get set free, and then you can help someone else get healed and get set free. Rule number 4 is to discover your purpose. You need to find out what on earth you're here for. Rule number 5 is to be authentic. No one else can beat you being you. Rule number 6 is to handle finances. Single people shouldn't be broke people, especially if they don't have any children. Rule number 7 is to exhaust your singleness. And you do this by living your life to the fullest and with no regrets, whether your single season is permanent or temporary until you get married. Rule number 8 is to develop healthy relationships with men and women by treating each other as brothers and sisters in Christ. And rule number 9 is date to mate. It talks about dating your potential mate, and how dating is data collection is one long interview. So this book is basically short, quick, frank, to the point. It gets to nitty gritty real quick. Each rule is a chapter.
Okay.
Yeah, each rule is a chapter. The chapter that I want to expound on is chapter 7, and it's entitled Exhaust Your Singleness. And it talks about, let's be honest. It just says, let's be honest. There's lots of advantages to being single. And some of those advantages are, when it comes to the person of the opposite sex, you don't have to worry about anyone becoming jealous. Also, you don't have to worry about checking in. Your money is your money, and you have your own personal space. And there's no emotional stress, just to name a few.
So you're saying there's advantages to being single?
Oh yeah, lots of advantages to being single, as I just mentioned.
You know, you can find a partner and still be single. Can
True.
you? Or can you?
I mean, you can find a partner and still be single. I guess it just depends on what you want to do with your life. Do you want to have a lifelong commitment with someone where you graduate from being single to being married? Or do you want to stay single, which is fine. It just depends on what you want to do with your life.
Right. So you've been single a long time.
I have 47 years.
All right. Why are you writing this book now?
I don't know. It was just what was in my heart. I thought about starting a singles ministry. And instead of doing a singles ministry, I thought, no, let me write this book. I'm going to write a book on maximizing your singleness. So it was just what was in my heart. I've always had a heart for singles. And I've always wanted singles to live a healthy and successful life. So that's what this book is written for. The book is written for singles who are struggling being single and need some direction. And it's also written for healthy, successful singles who are on the right track and simply need some enlightenment, encouragement, reinforcement, and confirmation.
All right, Drusilla, thank you. Finally, let's go to Copenhagen, where we find entrepreneur Martin Kuka Krembia, who has written a book entitled Dracula, and he's written it as if the character actually lived. We'll get to the story in a minute, but how did you find out about Page Publishing?
It's one of my employees who actually found it for me, and suggested that I would try applying and then maybe get accepted.
And you wrote about Dracula.
Yes.
Why?
That was actually a little bit of a funny story. I also went to a boarding school once long ago. And after brushing my teeth I tried imitating Dracula, and then his helpful assistant, Igor. So it went something like, Igor, bring me a glass of champagne. Yes, master, you get the champagne, you turn your way. And then I was like, holy moly, man, that's real good imitating.
So you've always been fascinated by Dracula.
Yes, first I, thought, yeah, this Dracula guy, he's a fictional character. So I had honestly no idea upon the years of research that would go into it, and the heavy research that I'd have to do under this Dark Prince, Vlad the Impaler, who actually was used as an inspiration source to come up with this Dracula guy.
What part of his life did you focus on?
I took out some segments in his life, the most tragic and the things that changed him for the largest part. That would be, for example, that he got sold away as a slave, or other, things that would affect one. What I have tried to do is just write a good story. So it's a good combination between reality and fiction. So we get some periods in this Vlad the Impaler's life, and then we can put it together with this Dracula character and how he emerged and all his escapades. Begins with this introduction to Dracula. So basically, how did Vlad the Impaler become Dracula? And after that, what we then get into is how this Dracula guy actually was and why was he the way he was. And then the main part of the book actually is where a class from the States travels to Romania on a research trip, but they apparently bump into Dracula. Then there's quite a bit of interesting things that happen.
Now, you've promoted this book mostly through the internet, and, I was curious how that's working out for you.
Well, that's honestly working out splendidly. I mean, last year we reached about 100 million people across the globe. And this year, hopefully, we'll reach many, many times more people. They are both Dracula fans, horror fans, fiction fans, history fans, and, everything that we can possibly link to this horror genre.
Well, good for you, Martin. I'm glad to hear the online campaign is working out for you. That's not always the case. And I'm sorry, but we have to run. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini.